Welcome, everyone. Now, this is our special treat for everybody. We're going to give you an historical history, some context around the chapter, what we've been doing from a presidential perspective for the last 10 plus years. South Florida HIMSS has been around in the South Florida community, in the hospital industry for a very long time. We've had some people that have been a part of this chapter for that length of time. So we wanted to hear from them to talk about their presidency, frame their story, and tell us what was happening, what was significant about their presidency, what was happening, even the people that some of them are not going to be here at this time, but we want to bring up some of those important milestones that make South Florida HIMSS the chapter that it is. So without even further ado, we're going to bring up a person you might already know who's been around the scene in South Florida for a very long time in a number of different capacities, but I'm going to bring him up, Mr. Jim McKean. Welcome.
Thank you, Grant. Thank you, guys. It's been a pleasure. Yeah, and Grant, I guess you want to talk a little bit about my presidency and.
Oh yeah, we want to talk about the South Florida HIMSS formation. They tell me that you are the historian. You are the South Florida HIMSS griot of stories. You know the whole thing. So let's start. Let's hear some of this interesting facts.
But you know, it's only as good as what you can remember. So that's the fun part of it. But I do remember starting with HIMSS when they were doing a HIMSS joint meeting with North and Central Florida HIMSS in Orlando. And I was asked to drive up there early to participate and represent my company at HIMSS for South Florida HIMSS. So I went up there, and it was kind of an interesting meeting. And I got to meet everybody, say hi to my dog back there. He's a superstar. He only plays with squeaky noises when I'm talking. That's good. So we went up there and they got involved. I go, it was kind of boring. It wasn't fun like what is now. I mean, now it's like a blast. You always look forward to it. It was kind of pretty stuffed shirt and kind of boring a little bit. I'm not knocking it was just the environment. And they're talking about interoperability and a lot of the same things, Rio and different things that they're talking about now with different languages type thing, but same concept, right? Get all the systems talking together. So I met with Arya and Liz brought his name up, and he was director at Miami-Dade Health, and he kind of walked me through it. And then when we came back, I after being a member for a year, I joined a membership with Jeff Strum. Jeff is now the CIO or CTO or at Memorial, and we're Ganish. And we built our membership. We had about 250, 300 members, and we kind of slowly grew it up to 400. And I believe now we're close to 1,800. So that's a kind of a nice growth. One of my one of my mentors back then was Fernando Martinez. He was CIO of Jackson. And for membership, I went to running membership, then to president-elect. So then 2 years president-elect. Then we had our first sort of like mini integrate event where I was kind of mirroring another healthcare organization and doing that signature grant. The board did all the work. And, you know, I was kind of mirroring the Georgia HIMSS because they had, I think they had some really great ideas, suggestions. I was friends with the president up there too. So I was kind of just tracking them. And so we did the HIMSS event, and it went up pretty good. I think we had close to 200 people. And it was the first one. And then it's just been snowballing from there with the great leadership that been at the HIMSS board.
And the very first president of the South Florida HIMSS, I mean, who formulated the chapter? Was that someone at Broward Health?
Well, that was Karen Ondo. She was CIO of Broward Health at the time. And what a wonderful, wonderful person. I tried to reach her to join this call. We just couldn't track it down. I think she's at the golf course somewhere with her husband, you know, in retirement, enjoying life. And but I reached out to everyone that was on the board back then to see if they could get her, and no one could touch base with her.
And there was one other president before you, right?
Guillermo was the first president. Actually, it should have been Karen because she was the founder / president. Then there was Guillermo, and we were running the 2-year presidency. So president-elect for 2 years, president for 2 years, and then past president for 2 years. So you really got be involved with the board and the growth of the board. So it was a lot of fun. One of the soapboxes that I had was I really wanted to get the students involved. That was kind of like to my heart. So I got to go out, and Fernando helped a lot because he was teaching at FIU and brought me into a couple of his classrooms to speak about HIMSS. So I started going to all the universities in South Florida talking about HIMSS and why the students need to. And this is what, before we started really focusing on doing the student events, like Liz helped with Anita and got really, really good. I mean, we started the foundation, started the rumblings, but the action took place later. But really wanted to get the students, because where else can you sit in a room with a CIO, maybe a future manager, and besides a HIMSS event? So it's just wonderful. As a matter of fact, at 6:30 tonight, Leon and I are doing and Sabrina, she won the scholarship award. We're doing a presentation for a class at FAU students. So, oh, look at that background. That's nice. And so that just continues to have fun. Having fun, like you said, it's really cool. I mean, I feel in where I can help now. And whatever I can do, I think the integrate solutions, the events that we're doing are phenomenal. The events that Grant, you've been involved with, we did a cybersecurity one, and all these different events are just top notch. I think we pivoted well during the COVID, and we kept our membership up, which is really cool. So now I co-chair the membership of Leon Green. He's at VTOS, and Leon Green is doing a fantastic job. So he's a pleasure to work with. And I've known Leon for 15 years, so it's really an enjoyment. We have a lot of good time. We tag team each other all the time in these events. So and that's about all I have to say. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to jump in later.
Oh, no problem, Jim. We love that you've been a part of this chapter for such a very long time, very consistent. You're very familiar face. When you think about South Florida HIMSS, I think your image is definitely top notch. It comes to the forefront. And then you brought up, some of the milestones that have been happening in the chapters. And I want to talk, and I'm going to go to the West Coast, and I want to say the West Coast, I'm talking all the way up into Northwest and to Seattle, Washington, that somebody is now completely retired, kind of, left us from FIU, and she said, I'm done. She just dropped the mic, and she was out of here. That's Miss Liz Rogowicz. If you want to come to the mic, tell us a little bit more about your experiences with HIMSS and what was important during your presidency.
Well, thank you, Grant. For me, it really was about the networking aspect of it and learning from our peers. At the time when I joined, I was at the University of Miami, and we were doing a huge implementation, a big first EHR implementation. And I joined HIMSS as a member, but then realized very quickly that the South Florida market had a lot of experienced people to actually lean on and learn from. And Karen Ondo, we mentioned her name, she was actually my mentor at that time. And I loved going to the meetings. So I joined South Florida HIMSS, became the program manager. I think I did it for like 3 years, and was very impressed with the level of participation and the fact that we had executives who were all working together for a similar goal. We all had the same problems and the same challenges from a work perspective. So I felt it was really important to continue that. I ran for president, and I was honored to serve as president. My year, I had to serve 3 years, not 2 years, because the president who was supposed to come in was unable to participate. So I took over the extra year. And again, my goal was to give back to the community. But as we started with these student programs, as Jim alluded to, I saw the interest from students. And these were not just students that were coming out of, their 4-year college or just out of high school. We were seeing nurses and other clinical professionals going back to school, trying to understand and figure out how they can get into the whole HIT arena. And since EHRs are, were at that time really the thing that was being implemented, they were key to all these implementations. So what we did with these student programs is really focus on how can we get those folks involved in either other mentors or connect them with other organizations. So one of the things we did is we had already had one scholarship. We were lucky enough to be able to raise money for a second scholarship, and that gave opportunity to students to be able to attend HIMSS nationally and also network. That was really, really important, giving back. And professional development. The interest of those student events really, really grew. And we ended up having a golf event, which was phenomenal. Year after year, that raised so much money. That was why we could get to the second scholarship award. And we were very lucky because we had incredible vendors that supported us. Honestly, money wasn't an issue for us to raise because the vendors in the community were so supportive. But at the same time, we made sure to balance, and this was probably our biggest challenge, but balance the vendor and actual healthcare worker or healthcare executive and their participation so that we could get the CIOs and executives to our meetings, but not feel like they were always being sold something. But yet they could actually network and work together and see their colleagues. So it was a fine line that we kept, but I think we were very, very successful at it because obviously executives from the HIT South Florida area kept coming back and wanted to be involved. So I was very lucky. I was very blessed to work with an incredible team because, as you know, one person doesn't do anything. It takes a village. We had an incredible village, incredible, and everybody gave 120%. And that's why I think we were really successful.
Well, I tell you one thing, what I did not know. Are you telling me that the golf event, so now we have an annual golf event, and it's been going on for a number of different years, very successful. Did that start during your presidency?
It was Anita's time, I think, was the first one, but the whole reason for that was for the student scholarship. But
Nice.
we created it. I was program manager, program director at the time, program chair is what we called it, right? And that's what we created. I remember the very first one. Oh my God, I didn't even play golf. And it was hysterical how, we had to lean on those golfers. Now I play golf. Thanks to the HIMSS event, now I actually play golf. But it was a lot of fun. And actually, that's one of the ways that we got Pua involved. Pua volunteered at one of our early golf events, and she was so good and so organized and a bundle of energy, which I love. That we recruited her and said, come on, and she was great. Obviously, ended up being the president later on, next one that was in line. So yeah.
Funny story about that. I roped my husband into golfing, who's not a golfer, and since that first golf event, I think he golfed with you, Grant.
That's true.
He's been golfing nonstop since. It's been like Pandora's box of out of controlness. So Thank you, HIMSS.
No, that's one, and we had so much fun. And I tell you, that's one thing that I truly remember or know, the brand, if you want to call that, for South Florida HIMSS. They bring together the community. Everybody comes out and has a very good time, kind of just puts their titles and whatnot, on to the side and just really come together as people and truly get to know each other on a different level. And I've seen that happen time and time again. Love working with you, Liz. Miss you, definitely miss you, for sure. But I know you're doing great things out there in your new job as a grandmother, and I'm joining that club as a grandfather. So I love it. And you just brought Pua up, Miss Pua Cooper. Yeah. And I've been working with her now. She's up there up north in Boca Raton at the hospital up there. And you're right, she brings so much energy to the game. And I think during her presidency, there were some changes that took place that we've got to frame. Because I think it put us on not just the South Florida map, but put us on a map throughout Florida and throughout the country. So without further ado, I'd like to hear a little bit more from Ms. Pua Cooper.
Well, thank you. That's very nice compliment. Very nice compliments. Thank you. But I didn't do it. So let's just make that really clear. I inherited a really strong chapter from Liz. And when you say she dropped the mic and she went up to Washington, that's because rock stars drop mics and walk out. And that's what I had. I was fortunate to take over on a really great chapter. I took over the chapter a year earlier than anticipated because of the unexpected change in the presidency cycle. And that's where you just kind of fake it till you make it. I am known to be a little bit organized, a little bit methodical. So really all I did was pick up all the great things that our chapter was doing and help to keep all the balls in the air at once. And that's the key to a really high performing chapter, is just taking a group of volunteers who have full-time jobs, and usually pretty demanding full-time jobs, and then asking them to give more. And that's really, the challenge that I think presidents face, is that this is not your paying gig, but we're going to ask you to give of yourself and try to fit it into your already long work day. And we had great people, we had a great board, we had great volunteers. And it was really about just kind of coordinating all of those great efforts that were going on and just kind of hardwiring them, giving them a little bit more structure, a little bit more organization, and keeping all those balls up in the air so that, we could grow our membership at the same time we grew our programs, at the same time we focused on students, we built committees, made sure we had places for new people that wanted to join and knew where we needed them. Just giving that structure instead of saying we have these committees. Which committees? How many members does this one have versus this one? Who needs help? And just kind of getting a little bit more organization to it so that everybody had the manpower to be great. And I think that's one of the things that challenges us, is that we're all so busy, you can't do it on an island. You need a whole team. And so making sure you know what committees you have, who's on them, when are the meetings. So when people say, I want to help, you can lay out the choices at their feet so that it really is a true team effort, because without the team, you're not going anywhere. At least you may go there for a short time. It's like a sprint, but we're not running a sprint. We're running a marathon, and we need big teams to help support that. So I think that was probably the little ad I contributed to the already great picture that was in place.
Well, you've added more than just that. And I believe during your presidency, you were honored at the high level at HIMSS on the big stage. Well, I think it was like 1 year into COVID. You were supposed to be there before, but you got honored here recently. You want to talk a little bit about that experience?
Oh, yes. Okay. We had a great year as a chapter. And like I said, we just built on what was already there, but it all fortunately culminated in the time that I happened to be at the helm. So again, I don't take credit for all of it. It was just good timing for me. We got named Medium Chapter of the Year, which was fantastic because that had been something that had been worked on by all the presidents before me. And we finally put our hat in the ring yet again another year and got recognized as Medium Chapter of the Year, which was exciting. I was extremely lucky to have Kendall, who's is our current president. She was in advocacy. She was the chapter advocate, and she was a rock star in that place, just taking advocacy to a whole different place. And it's really funny because Kendall and I started in the chapter together. We were both on advocacy, and it was the committee that needed help, and we were working together, and the chapter advocate of that group moved up to the Northwest again, like Liz. And she tapped us on the shoulder and told Liz, Kendall and Pua, that's who needs to lead advocacy. And as you can see, advocacy apparently leads to great things because president. But Kendall just rocked advocacy. She was named Chapter Advocate of the Year nationally, the single chapter advocate for the country that was recognized for all the work she had done while she was overseeing advocacy. And then I was fortunate to be named the National Chapter Leader of the Year. So
Yes.
it was a great year for South Florida HIMSS. We were super excited to celebrate all of our wins at our 2020 HIMSS, which happened to be in Florida. So it was going to be a big moment for us. It was 4 days before the event in March of 2020.
It's all right, because
Canceled
we call that a sweep. You swept the awards, you swept away, And I just know in Orlando, man, we were all beaming. We were looking forward to that. And you're right. It was just like, shut up. We're not going and we're not going to get the awards, but you did get it in Vegas. And that was wonderful. And we still have we still have the momentum as we're building forward. I'm sure everyone just enjoyed this last virtual conference that we're in now. It's our first virtual conference. But we've had some wonderful, wonderful in-person integrates. And that's where I first met Kendall. Kendall Brown, and I can't remember that, but I saw her, walking through Integrate, and I didn't know if she was, one of the vendors like I was, or she was one of the other healthcare executives, or what she did, but she looked so interesting. And I had to go and find out her story. And she is so approachable that she went ahead and just told me exactly what was going on. I caught the fire, I caught the passion, and I wanted to be a part of this program. So Kendall, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Grant. And I remember that moment. Integrate has really been a pivotal event for me in lots of ways, and HIMSS as well. I remember the first golf course or the golf tournament that I went to. I think it may have been one of the first ones. It could have been the first tournament, but I didn't know. I didn't know how to play golf. I didn't know which end of a golf club to hold. Lou Mendez, who has been leading our golf tournament for the last few years. I met him. I was on his foursome, and our friendship has blossomed from that first meeting. And with any volunteer organization, what you get is what you get, or what you put into it, or what you get out of it is what you put into it. As someone previously mentioned, we're all volunteers. We have our paying jobs that consume us. Many have children and families and all of the life complexities that we are juggling as well. But I can honestly say that some of my best friendships and relationships have come out of my involvement in South Florida HIMSS. And I remember when Puas and I, our names got thrown in the hat by Lisa Rollins, and we didn't know advocacy. We were just learning as we were doing, and going to Tallahassee and talking to policymakers is very similar to my job in sales as a vendor. Book meetings and educate folks on and be a resource. And that's really what advocacy was. The big mic drop moment for Orlando HIMSS that was canceled, that we were planning on announcing, was the Florida interoperability bill. So my growth from the chapter and HIMSS as a national organization has really stemmed from advocacy. I did not know anything about advocacy. I did graduate from a college that's in Tallahassee. Always intrigued me going to the Capitol, but really never had the opportunity to do so. So looking back on the successes that we've been able to come from at South Florida HIMSS with policy, advocacy, and the Florida interoperability bill is quite impressive. But it's certainly not just myself, as it was mentioned. It takes an army to do these things, and Tallahassee's not close to South Florida, so that adds its own complexity too. But the Florida interoperability bill was a big feather in our hats, and you can learn more about that on our website. We've got great policy support from Senator Harrell. Jackie Toledo was also very instrumental in helping the Florida interoperability bill. So I think you just have to find your niche within the chapter. And it's nice to bounce around as well. Like Jim, he's been serving as a membership chair. I think the goal is to break 2,000 before the end of my presidential term in 20 months. And who's counting? Jump around to different committees, expose yourself and get exposure from different areas and different leaders within the organization. And again, what you get out of any volunteer organization is what you put into it. So show up, don't just sit around, don't be more than a member. You'll get more out of the organization.
Hey, Kendall, I want to ask this question now, because you've been involved with the organization for a long time. Now we told the story how you got into it, but tell us tell us a story that we don't know about that just frames your experience in him. There's a favorite experience that we need to hear about.
I've met some key leaders within our own background in health IT. I met Ed Martinez, former CIO of Miami Children's, amongst other hospitals, I think, as well. It's been incestual here in South Florida. We like to trade leaders across various hospital organizations. But, I remember walking up to Ed and giving him my business card when I was with Xerox at the time. And that later came into, a big fruition, a big deal within the organization I was working for. So back to my point, just don't show up to our events or to an event without goals in mind. I personally have a goal of networking at any event, and I don't necessarily feel like schmoozing with everybody every time I go to an event. But if I'm going to make the effort and the time to get there, especially in South Florida traffic, I'm going to hand out at least 3 business cards, and they're not going to be just, put in the trash, right? I'm going to connect with 3 people and, take that further. That's what these organizations are about, is connecting with people and like-minded business professionals. So I encourage everyone to use these opportunities to do the same. You never know, you'll meet some of your best friends by doing that. And growing outside of just a business relationship.
So we have been blessed with the presence of a past president, Miss Anita Wilson. She's going to have an opportunity to tell us a little bit more about her time when she was president. She's legendary, as we just heard about from the other presidents, as they spoke about her in very favorable terms. So we're going to give her an opportunity to tell us a little bit more about what was happening during your time as president.
Thanks, Grant. I had the opportunity to be president at South Florida HIMSS for 2010 to 2012. And so we were still a pretty new chapter at the time, and really trying to decide what our future should be, what we should focus on. And the group got together and we decided, we should put on a conference. And we didn't know what we didn't know at the time and how complicated it can be putting together a conference. But we all just jumped in and, reached out to everyone we knew, speakers, sponsors, volunteers, and somehow pulled it all together without having conference planners or anyone involved. And had great turnout, really focused on having a lot of providers there, and we had it free for the providers. And so it was a wonderful conference, and we're very excited with the outcome.
Excellent. Now, you were administrator over at Nicholas Miami Children's. Were you working for Children's at that time?
At that time, I was actually at Memorial Healthcare System, and then I moved to Nicholas Children's Hospital.
And you were in nursing informatics, so what's kind of your past role in the healthcare world?
Sure. I'm a pediatric nurse by background, and up until recently have worked with all the EMR teams at each of the organizations, and now currently working with clinical informatics and the organizational project management office at Valley Children's Hospital in Fresno, California, by Yosemite.
Excellent, excellent. That is wonderful. I like to see that you're still, in this field. You're doing good things, and that you're helping out. Now, are you involved with HIMSS out there in California?
I've been to some of the Southern California HIMSS meetings, but my passion is still with the Southern Florida team. It was a great group, and worked with them for so many years that my allegiance will always be with that chapter.
Oh yeah, I think we were just talking about that they just got the award, chapter of the year. Everybody's very excited. It is amazing. It's a good accomplishment, and that core group is still together. So a couple of people have moved on to the West Coast, like Liz and yourself, but we have a lot of the others, like the Oscars of the world, the Puas of the world, and now Kendall, and then we'd have Ganesh, and we're all moving the dial forward. And one of the other things that happened under your tutelage when you were president was the student membership. You made it a point to make sure that we get this next generation educated, exposed, get some opportunities. Can you just talk a little bit about that?
Sure, we, really wanted to focus not only on the providers, but also the students and student engagement. And so we worked with our board and membership to reach out to the local schools and really try and promote student activities and involvement with the chapter. They were some of our volunteers during the conference, which was great, or even when we started up doing the golf contest. And what was great too is when we had the integrated conference over time, as it grew and grew, we were able to start offering 1 and then 2 scholarships to National HIMSS Conference to the students. And so we were very proud of that. But it was really exciting to get the students involved and help them really understand what HIMSS is and what healthcare IT is.
Excellent, excellent. Now I want to ask a question, a little personal question. What got you involved or attracted to HIMSS, and how did you get started in the organization?
Well, I moved into IT out of nursing just because I saw how poor technology could negatively impact clinicians and how good technology could really help with workflow and everything. And so once I was involved in working in healthcare IT, I always enjoyed being involved in professional organizations. And so started getting involved with HIMSS. And then when I was in Fort Lauderdale, of course, I joined South Florida HIMSS chapter. And it was still very new. I think someone, I can't remember who it was, reached out to me and said, do you want to get more involved? And I was like, sure. And, eventually became the president and, reached out to others and just love staying in, contact with everyone. It was a great way to meet people at other organizations. I don't think I ever would have met Liz or, Ari Anton and Karen Ondo and, some of those folks, Pua and all, if I hadn't been involved in the chapter. So, that was a lot of fun to always see them at meetings and reunite and work together.
Well, excellent. This has been wonderful. We are all very blessed to have had you here at the South Florida chapter as we celebrate our 10-year anniversary. You're going to be part of the legacy and the history as we go forward. And anytime you come back down to South Florida, I hope it's during the integrate time so we can all see each other once again. Thank you very much.
That'd be fun. Thank you so much.
And look, and now we've got, you've met this guy named Ganesh, Prasad. He's been waiting in the wings here. He's over at the Memorial Healthcare System. He's very well known, very well respected, and he was able to reach out to Kendra Brown and give her his business card. So,
and here I am.
Are wonderful. Now you're going to be taking the helm after Kendra. Now Kendra, she's got a little ways to go now. She just really got into this position as president in the summer, so she's got some time here. So you're going to be able to learn under her tutelage for the next couple of years. I think you come on board in 23, and we're very, very proud of that fact. So let us know, what are your plans? What are your goals for this organization?
Well, first off, I want to say, I'm honestly very proud and honored to be in the presence of all these great healthcare IT leaders, right, and mentors, right? I remember when I was applying for the secretary position, I had a conversation at like 6 o'clock with Pua, and Pua was giving me the rundown of what it was and what I'm going to be doing. But I knew I wanted to get involved. I knew that I needed to be involved with the chapter. I was just finishing my master's at Nova Southeastern here. And Dr. Stephen Bronsberg was a member on the board as well as Oscar, who's not here, who I worked with at Memorial. And, I expressed my interest in wanting to be involved because I knew what the chapter represented in the area. And, just knew I needed to do something to get involved. And when the opportunity came up for elections, I was like, yep, I'm gonna jump on it and try to contribute as best as I can. And I had the support from my leadership at Memorial, and obviously the phenomenal group of leaders that we have at the chapter. And I think, everyone, what they said is true. It does take a village, not just to do what we do on a daily, weekly basis of bringing, relevant, state of the art, whatever you want to say, content, right, to our member base, but more so to the community, right? And as you can see over the 10 years, healthcare IT has changed, right? It's evolved from being more of a true, hey, you're an IT traditional sense type thought process, right? But now with clinicians, and like I think Liz nailed it in the head, you have clinicians who are going back into school who are wanting to get into the healthcare IT arena, right, to understand it. But then you have the workforce that are primarily focused on the clinical aspect of it, right? But they use technology on a daily basis, right? And I think with that evolution, and it's going to continue to grow that way, I think there needs to be an emphasis on making sure that we're reaching that member base, right? That we expand our member base. I think 2,000 is great, but let's take it to 4,000. Let's have that mix of the other 2,000 be clinicians, be providers, be, you know, that the folks that are caring for our patients, but using the technology that we all help support. So I think that's where, if you're asking me where I see it going, I think that's where I think my focus will be. And especially working in the healthcare landscape and working with providers and nurses and techs, you know, it's there, and there's a need for them to understand how the technology is there to help them, not see it as a barrier.
Without question, Ganesh, and I'm going to open it up for everybody now, because what you brought up is an important subject. We've just all went through a worldwide pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And at the forefront of that, obviously, it's a healthcare issue. And some of the solution, what came forth as kind of a hero, was technology. If we couldn't, just like now, we could not, operate in a virtual realm. And they began to see, like, I think someone said it would have took 10 years to get to where we're at an adoption rate for virtual care, for telemedicine, for people to be used to it, to be kind of expecting it. And now we can start seeing this huge shift from an industry that has been so used to doing things a certain way. They went kicking and screaming with electronic health records. Can you imagine they're still doing things on paper where you've gone to the bank and you just immediately get money withdrawn? When's the last time, you went in and actually filled out a slip, just to withdraw money, right? So there's been huge advantages. So I'd like to talk, let's hear about that, because, Poor, you're a CNIO. Liz, you're a former, I can't remember your exact title, but I know you was in that CFC role, CIO role. You're doing things at the college and just really impacting a lot of things. Ganesh, you're over there at the hospital. You're talking to so many different vendors. You're getting so much knowledge and understanding about interoperability. And here, Jim, you've done so much as implementing a lot of these solutions. Let's talk about this a little bit while we got a few minutes.
So, I'll tell you what, I mean, when I think about the role of the pandemic in the adoption of healthcare, I mean, I think undeniably telemedicine, what would have taken us so many years to ingrain, just kind of had like an immediate, like, on and off switch, like, boom, everybody's telemedicine figured out, because that's what we're doing. And so it really did help to push adoption at a light speed that I don't think we would have seen had we not been there. But what it did, it also highlighted where we have gaps. Public health reporting, huge gaps in public health reporting, and them not having the systems they need. And you can see how the pandemic is driving the future of promoting interoperability. We're talking about electronic case reporting, working, bi-directional immunizations being a mandatory integration between the hospitals and your state registries. So, we saw some things really push with vendors and creating apps and telemed, but then it shone a really bright light on where we in the United States need to start pushing our EHRs and our interoperability to focus on where it hadn't been. So,
and I'd like to add, from a workforce perspective, I have tried for years to get leadership to accept people working from home if you're in the HIT environment, right? And it just wasn't sticking very much. But this actually forced that environment. And now all of a sudden, leaders are seeing, well, we don't need to spend so much money on space and rent and janitorial services. And all of a sudden, that's also being accepted. So that also brings in the technology resources that are really interested to work in the healthcare environment if they have the ability of having some time working from home, maybe a flex time working from home, working in the office, but now it's much more acceptable.
I agree with you, Liz. And one thing that comes to my mind while listening to everyone speak is just the fantastic people that have been part of South Florida HIMSS for over a decade. With Tom Gillette from Mount Sinai, he was amazing work that he did. And Liz, I know you remember when we used to have breakfast over at Biltmore, and we do Anita was fantastic. Fernando Martinez was awesome. You had Alex Ramiro was very active with us at the very beginnings. He's the CEO of Health Choice Networks. Now these are the teams. Lisa Rollins, her name was brought up, and she was running the Rio down here, and that's when I got more involved with it. Where's that got us now, right? So where are we sharing that data? So yeah, I think it's going to be continuing to shift and pivot, but with the great people that South Florida HIMSS attracts, it's really an honor to be part of it. And I welcome everyone that's not a member to become a member and get on one of the board.
And since you're naming names, we need to recognize, and I'm sure I'm going to forget people, but first of all, program manager, program chairman, Janine Pratt has done an incredible job and has supported multiple presidents. And we can't, go without a good program chair because that is the crux of everything. Also, George Reyes, he's been our treasurer for like probably 2 decades, 10 years, right? Unbelievable for any president to not have to worry about anything financial because he knows what he's doing and he knows how to fill out the reports. And I'm sure there are others there, but we have to mention the village that supported us.
And Anita, I know she's not here with us today. I saw her recently. She started Integrate, or under her president. It's not her. It's not one person. This organization is run by a whole board and steered by the entire board. It's not just one person's role, but under her presidential term, Integrate was born. So if it wasn't for her, Integrate, we wouldn't be here today. And from the COVID perspective, from a vendor perspective, being resourceful to our IT providers, and also leveraging the technologies that I do have in my bag. I can't tell you at 5-6 years, I was talking to policymakers about telehealth, cybersecurity, and interoperability. And I'd like to think that, some of the works that we did help recognize the need for telehealth during this COVID time. I hope to be able to add a mentor-mentee program under my presidential term. Once we get through Integrate 2021, that will be kicking off. So if you're interested, please get in touch.
Grant, as I'm thinking about how it's affected EHRs and the pandemic and the health environment, I got thinking about how it affected the chapter. Our chapter spans this ridiculously large geographical region. And every time we did member surveys, it was like, I can't drive to events. I can't drive to events. I can't drive to events. And it was talking about the need for virtual or asynchronous, versions of what we were doing. And so it's really funny to see. And we were, under my presidency, we were starting to do some virtual lunch, things that we were recording and putting on the website asynchronous for those who couldn't be in the event because they had a meeting or they were working at in their space. And it's funny, you fast forward past the pandemic. Now we're all dreaming about being next to each other in a room. Everything went virtual, including Integrate, although we were really very, very excited about hopefully being in a room together because it's been so long. So it's funny to even just kind of review and think about how the pandemic's affected. So we get the pros. We can personalize anything now. We're masters of virtualization. And swinging the pendulum of I miss seeing you guys outside of a square that's 2x2,
Yeah, a little bit. And I want to add that we had the Innovation Awards. I think that was started, it was either Poor or Oscar, right?
No, it was before.
It was before.
It was in Liz's time.
Oh, it's been around for, I didn't realize that. That's been some time.
Janine, right?
Yep, yep.
And but
So
those
what
awards
we
are
used
so
to call
important.
it, we started it as it was a spoof after a program or a show. I don't remember what the original phrasing of it was, but yes, we ended up calling it Innovation Award, and Janine really led it. And in fact, one of my favorite memories is going through the 30-some applications on a sailboat that was docked because we couldn't go out to sail as we were sitting there reviewing everybody's applications and trying to figure out who the top 3 were, because the whole idea of that was then the top 3 would come in and actually present, and we would make it into a contest, and there'd be a winner that would then present at integration at Integrate. So
Thank you, Paul's sailboat.
yes, Paul's sailboat was amazing.
Yeah, that's the way, if you're going to review a bunch of abstracts, that's the way you need to do it.
Absolutely. No matter how
Little
hot it is.
boat, little wine, little wind,
Not a little, a lot.
or a lot, and a captive audience. You
Yes,
can't exactly
that's
get
right.
off the boat when
That's right.
we're looking to. So, yeah,
Sounds like Integrate minus the boat.
maybe that's what we'll do for the winner. The winner of next year's Integrate will get a nice yacht trip. How about that?
Got to talk to Paul.
Paul, we know you're listening. Well, this has been wonderful. Wonderful. The whole entire audience is going to love this. We need to do more of this and talk about things and what's really impactful, what's really going on. This is how we move the needle forward. So before we conclude here, is there anything else that we haven't talked about that someone would like to put forward? I think we dropped the mic. No, here's Ganesh. Here we go.
No, I know we're wrapping up the day, right? We had a lot of great speakers and a lot of things that we've talked about here over the 10 years, right? A lot of the speakers that we've had throughout this Integrate has helped pave the way, right, for where we are as a health IT organization, right? From regulatory to technology to leadership, we've had those leaders here today to help, tell their story and where they think healthcare is going. So just wanted to give them a huge thank you.
I'll do one last plug for those who are sitting there as members and not involved in committees or the board. Just respond to any email where we're looking for volunteers, because you just never know. You don't even have to know a lot about the subject. I knew nothing about advocacy. Some of it, you jump on a committee and you learn it and you just fake it until you make it. And one day you find yourself on a Zoom screen talking about your past presidency. And I mean, I think that happened for a lot of us. I think when we got engaged, we were like, I don't know what I'm doing. And then one day you just did. And so if you're thinking about getting involved, just rip the Band-Aid off and do it, because none of us walked in with all the knowledge when we started, and that's for sure.
Correct.
Well, this has been wonderful. I want to thank South Florida HIMSS for inviting Follow the Brand. That's Mr. Grant McGaugh, myself. I know I've been a faithful member of HIMSS for the last 6+ years, and it has been a phenomenal journey for me. I've learned so much from so many different people, and all I can say is that the love is real, and I really appreciate each and every one of you. Be sure to tune into all the episodes on Follow the Brand at www.5starbdm. That's B for brand, D for development, and for masters. Until next time, bye-bye.